And welcome back to the Scenario 7 podcast. My name is Sam, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host. It's Josh Bacon and Joe Roberts. How are you two doing?
I'm very good, thank you, Sam. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing good, thank you.
That's great to hear. And this week, this episode, we are going to be reviewing the French Grand Prix, Paul Ricard. And first of all, lads, let's get your general thoughts on the race. What do you think about this year's French Grand Prix?
A lot better than previous French races, probably. It was a very strategic race, but I think very enjoyable for F1 fans more than other people who just came and watched the race because they don't really they're probably just looking for overtakes and crashes. But for an F1 fan, I think it was reasonably enjoyable for a French Grand Prix.
Yeah, I've got a bit of egg on my face for my comments in the preview when I basically slated off the French Grand Prix. But yeah, it was surprisingly entertaining. Maybe that's probably how the French Grand Prix should be, rather than as in more of a two-stop than an actual one-stop. I think it works if it's a mixture, as in like you can do the one-stop, but also you can do the two-stop and see which one's fastest. I think that's the way that Pirelli have to try and go with the French Grand Prix. But apart from that, it was a very entertaining race.
Yeah, totally. We normally do a breakdown of all the incidents of the race, and there were none this time. So I'm going to talk about quali. So in quali in Q1, we had Tsunoda causing a red flag, and we also had Schumacher causing a red flag, which meant that Stroll couldn't get out of Q1 again, because this happens to Stroll way too much, where he saves up everything for like a last-minute lap where he'll get easily breeze into like Q2. And I think this is the second week in a row where either he's caused a red flag or he's just not been able to put a lap in. It's really unlucky, but it was quite strange because Paul Ricard has so much runoff. Like the French Grand Prix has so much runoff. So, guys, why do you think there were two red flags in Q1?
People being idiots. Tsunoda dropping it for like the third, basically the third time in I think how he caused a red flag in Imola, then caused a red flag in, I would say, Paul Ricard. I don't know. The French, and then I think Portugal as well. It's getting a bit of a repetitive theme, and I know from previous experience with Alpha Tauri's management, they don't particularly like people binning it. But yeah, as in Schumacher, I think it's just it's the F2 car, I like to call it. It's pretty much undrivable. It's understeers and then oversteers. So I can't really give fault to them for that.
Yeah, Joe's pretty much said it all. They just didn't choose, but they just unfortunately crashed into the two walls, which are the two walls closest to the track. So of all the places to crash, they had to choose places where they would cause red flags. But the strange one with Tsunoda's was the way that the rear end of the car was shaking whilst it was going backwards. It was really strange to see because I think quite a lot of people said on the program they'd never seen that before or in quite a while. So the way he crashed was quite strange. But it's just a learning curve for them both. They both tried to overcommit into the two corners they crashed at. So I'm sure they'll learn from it and improve on if they come back next year. But yeah, it was just unfortunate of where they crashed.
Yeah, it is the two rookies after all. They're of course they're going to make mistakes this year. Josh is here speculating over their future after crashing the first year of F1. But Schumacher's so unlucky getting into Q2 for the first time, but causes a red flag, so he couldn't drive. He couldn't take part. I mean, he'd probably come 15th anyway, but he couldn't take part, which is really unlucky. Moving on to, I guess, the team versus team breakdown, because of the lack of incidents over the race weekend. Let's first of all talk about Mercedes and Red Bull. We had Hamilton and Bottas, who I think got let down by strategy, and Red Bull got their strategy perfect this weekend. And having a second driver like Perez, who actually was close to Verstappen on the Sunday, definitely helped them. How would you two analyze the battle between Mercedes and Red Bull over the weekend?
Well, I think, like you said, having Perez up there, able to annoy the Mercedes in a sense of way, because then they can't do what they did in Barcelona or previous races, definitely helped Red Bull. And it definitely helped that Perez was just amazing with his tyres. So he was able to do a different strategy to Verstappen, who did a 2-stop and then he did a 1-stop. So that definitely helped. And but I think with Mercedes, they just didn't listen to their drivers this weekend, because I think they both said over the radio that they both wanted to do a 2-stop, or they thought it would be a 2-stop race, and they just completely ignored him, the engineers. So they definitely should apologise to him, and they should definitely have been at fault for this weekend. But Verstappen and Red Bull just pulled out a masterclass this weekend and just got a little bit of payback for Barcelona themselves. So it was interesting to watch. I did think when Verstappen came in for a second stop, I thought they'd bring in at least one of the Mercedes drivers, but they didn't. So they tried a risk, it didn't pay off, but I'm sure they'll come back stronger in Austria.
Yeah, I've got to agree with Josh that Mercedes basically screwed up their strategy. I think it's getting to a point where I think if they're not careful, they could bottle the constructors' championship in terms of the fact that I don't know how many points it is, but the gap is getting to a point where you would need either Max or Perez to have a really bad race. I think they probably should have pitted Bottas when he said it's a 2-stop. I didn't know why they didn't, because they would have jumped Max Verstappen, and then when Hamilton pitted, they could have easily swapped it around if they wanted to do that. And then they would have got a 1-2. Yeah, I think it was in Mercedes' hand, just due to the fact of where they were placed on the track. But again, as Josh said, it's payback from Barcelona. But from my opinion, it's just an absolute bottle job from what Mercedes did. Not listen to their drivers, and again, they get apology from the team for that.
Yeah, totally. It did remind me of the Spanish Grand Prix, the way it was all about strategy. One of the very few races without a DNF. I think this is the last one might have been 2019. I think it might have been, but it's crazy that we didn't get a DNF this race. And the thing with Mercedes, I personally think that the strategy they had could have worked for a Hamilton win. I think that Hamilton could have won this race if Bottas could have held up Verstappen more. Realistically, I think Bottas could have held on for the rest of the lap and then maybe one more lap before Verstappen eventually getting past. Because it's not the easiest track to overtake. There's definitely overtaking points with the DRS zones, but it's not like the easiest. And Bottas just let him pass. He made a mistake into the corner. He was worried. He was looking back too much. He was worried about what Verstappen was doing. And realistically, he should have concentrated on what he was doing to defend. And that eventually cost Lewis the race. I think that he could have held on, and Lewis would have been very close, but I think Lewis could have possibly won. I mean, do you guys think that Bottas could have held on more? And we talk about Bottas a lot making mistakes, and he vented his frustration. Is it a lot of comparisons being drawn to Vettel when he came to the end of Ferrari? Is this a similar scenario? Will he even make it till the end of the season?
I would compare it to the end of Alonso. I remember that starting out with strategy errors and also it was more of the car, but it was strategy errors, probably because he was in a championship winning team the previous season. They could have won the championship. But yeah, it's getting to a point where Mercedes have to make a decision in terms of, do they keep Bottas, who looks very unhappy, I don't think wants to be there anymore. He's just you could then compare it to Vettel and the fact he doesn't looks like he doesn't want to be there. Then do you put Russell in? Do you put Ocon, try and get Ocon back? Do you then put one of their academy drivers in? I think it's not DeFree. No, I can't remember the name. It's the one that races in Formula E as well.
Van Dorn.
Pardon?
Stoffel Van Dorn.
No, it's another one. I can't remember it. Well, come back to me. But yeah, it's one of those drivers just to compete. I think they have to make a decision, or because the title is slowly going from their grasp if they don't act now. I think they have to. I think it's time they probably should do a Red Bull and drop Bottas. It's just my opinion on it. They need to get rid of him as quickly as possible.
Yeah, going back to the race with the Verstappen overtake, I do agree with you, Sam, that he could have done a little bit more. But like you said, I think the frustration just got the better of him, and he was too busy focusing on Verstappen behind him and not the fact that he could have helped his teammate out. So I think he was just too annoyed with his team. So he thought, what's the point in a way? Because they don't care about me, so why should I care about them? I think that's kind of what his mentality is at the moment. Because like you said, he was screaming down the radio saying, well, I've not done this. I said to do it earlier. And even before the race, I said to do it. So you can feel sorry for him, but also he's not really helping himself either. So there's a bit of both sides to that story. And then, like Joe said, it's in some ways it's similar to Vettel at Ferrari, because I'm not sure if he wants to be there anymore. But whether he can get motivated again is the main factor of whether he should stay to the end of the season or if they should bring someone else in before the end of the season. But it's tough to call, because whether you do that, you could then destroy his confidence completely, and then that could be his career over in Formula One, or you could be bringing someone else in too early, which then doesn't really make a difference if you have Bottas in or hit someone else. So it's tough to call, but I think Bottas just needs to gain some confidence and have a good race, because I think he had the pace this weekend. He was keeping up with Verstappen and Hamilton in the first stint, but until they didn't do the second pit stop, it just didn't go to his plan. So we'll see, but I think he should stay for a little while longer.
Yeah, it certainly is that balancing act. Joe, I think it's Pascal Wehrlein who you were talking about. Am I right?
No, it's the F2. It's Dutch. The F2.
We will never find out who it is. Joe, when it comes back to you, let us know. Let us know. But moving on, we're now going to talk about the battle between McLaren and Ferrari. And this week, and it really wasn't close at all, especially on the Sunday. Both the McLarens had really great races, which is really good that Ricciardo finally got some good points and had a really good race. And Ferrari had an absolute nightmare. Lads, how do you compare the weekends? What happened to Ferrari?
I think their cars are just completely opposite in a way, because Ferrari have a good car for one lap pace, but then McLaren have the car for the race pace. So they're always going to do contrasting things on the weekend. One's going to have a better Saturday and then one's going to have a better Sunday. But the only problem with Ferrari, or the main problem with Ferrari this weekend, was the tyre degradation. I don't think anyone understands, even themselves understands, why they have so much degradation going on in their tyres. Which it doesn't make any sense from anyone's point of view, because they're doing the same stuff to any other car, So something's clearly not working. But yeah, it was just a terrible weekend from them, with Sainz finishing 11th and Leclerc finishing 16th, which is something you don't hear from a Ferrari very often. But I'm sure they'll figure something out and come back stronger. But then moving on to McLaren, they had the perfect weekend they could have possibly, or the perfect Sunday they could have possibly had. I think they'd feel disappointed with Sunday, with qualifying 8th and 10th. But with Saturday qualifying 8th and 10th. But the race on Sunday was just perfect for them. The strategy for both of them, doing split strategies, just worked perfectly, with Ricciardo jumping Sainz and Gasly for the undercut, and then Norris going longer and doing a one-stop and just coming back up through the field. Was just excellent decisions from their strategists. So I think they'll be very pleased with this weekend, and they'll be motivated to get into Austria and repeat what they did in Austria last year.
Yeah, I think Josh basically said, I think Ferrari had, I think me and Josh hyped them up very much in terms of like qualifying, but and then I thought it would translate to the race, but it's again a bit of a disaster. Very happy as well, because I don't really like Ferrari that much. And yeah, so they had a disaster with the tyre wear. And then McLaren did a pretty much, I would say, a masterclass strategy. Same as Red Bull, going one long and one short. I think it worked very, very well for both of them.
Yeah. It was definitely a weekend of contrasting emotions. Nick De Vries. Yeah. That's it. Is that the driver you're thinking of?
Yes. Yeah.
We have finally cracked the case. It's Nick De Vries. Thank goodness for Wikipedia. But yeah, it really was contrasting emotions. Moving on to the midfield, AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, Alpine, and both. It was like one driver from each team had a good race, and then the others had all right races, but like not amazing. I mean, we have Gasly starting 6th, getting 7th. We have Vettel starting 12th, getting 9th, and Alonso starting 9th, getting 8th. So all of them getting some good points for their team. But then you had, to be fair, Sonoda did start last, so 13th isn't too bad. Stroll starting 19th and getting a point. He got a point over Sainz, who literally started 5th, which really shows how catastrophically the Ferrari just got it wrong. And then Ocon 11th to 14th, not a great race. But yeah, how do you think the midfield battle went in Paul Ricard?
Again, I think it's a weird one. I think most of the Ferrari-powered cars didn't really do particularly well. I don't think. I don't know. As in, so yeah. So I think I'd probably say the Aston Martins, I think, did probably the best. I know Gasly got 7th. Yeah. Yeah, 7th. I knew he got decent pool of points. So yeah, I think it'd be, if you're going off like points wise, I would say AlphaTauri did the best, but for me, Aston Martin, just due to the fact I think Vettel did particularly well. I think it came, and then you have Stroll, who started from the back, gaining a point. I think it was very good performance. And then I would and then the Alpines. The Alpines, I think, were very a bit of a, I don't know, as in Alonso did very well because he was looked like he was struggling going backwards, like the Ferraris couldn't switch on the tires on the softs, and then obviously went on to the hards, did particularly well, and then Ocon just did the opposite. It was very much, as you said, Sam, opposite of like most drivers. And some drivers struggle with the tire wear, and some drivers just excelled.
Yeah, I think in terms of positions, I think Aston Martin had probably the better race day. But I think in terms of the car, I think AlphaTauri had the fourth best car on the circuit that day. I know, obviously, if Tsunoda started last, but if he started higher up, I reckon he would have been in the points with Gasly because their car looked quite strong on the race day and the weekend. So I think in terms of the car, they had the fourth best car, but in terms of points, I think Aston Martin had the better race day. It was a great strategy from Aston Martin with Stroll coming from last to 10th and Vettel going ninth. The points to the team was very much needed. But then with the Alpines, I think they'll be satisfied with an 8th place. But I think with Ocon, he just couldn't get his tyres going. He couldn't do what Alonso did with Alonso's experience of degradation and looking after his tyres. So I think they'll be satisfied, but not pleased if that makes any sense. But yeah, I think Aston Martin had the better weekend overall compared to the midfield teams.
Yeah, totally. It is a case of Gasly had a good qualifying spot, so got some good points, and Tsunoda starting last, so couldn't really get the most of it. But yeah, it was very close in points between these midfield teams, and it's really hotting up between them two. I think probably AlphaTauri have the advantage with the Honda engine at the moment, but Aston Martin are definitely growing into it, and Alpine are getting points here and there. So it's a very interesting battle. Next, let's talk about just the one team we talk about on their own because they're too good to be considered at the bottom and not good enough to be considered midfield. Alfa Romeo, and it wasn't really it wasn't a great day for them. Both of the drivers not getting points, neither of them anywhere near the points, and yeah, no real positions gained compared to where they qualified. So how does this weekend went for Alfa Romeo?
It's just like Joe said. I think it's just the Ferrari powered cars just didn't suit this track whatsoever. There's something going on with pace and tyre deg with the Ferrari powered cars. So didn't really expect much from them in the race. I think it was 15th for Giovinazzi and 17th for Raikkonen. So nothing much more they could have done, to be honest. But I'm sure like Ferrari, they'll figure out what's wrong and come back stronger on another day. But there's not really much to say about the Alfa Romeos, to be honest.
Yeah. As Josh has probably said all of it. Yeah, the Alfa Romeo is based in no man's land, fighting nobody. So yeah, there is something. I don't know if they buy parts from Ferrari. It could be that. I know Haas do it, but yeah, that could be the reason that they were struggling. But overall, they were just in no man's land.
Yeah, it certainly was just a really poor, or not even poor, just a really meh race where they found themselves nowhere near anyone. Finally, let's talk about the Williams of the Haas. We have talk about a Ferrari that did very badly, but they do badly every race. We have the Haas, and then we have the Williams. And to be fair, one of the drivers in one of the teams, Russell, had a really great race. Admittedly, Latifi, Schumacher, and Mazepin ended up coming 18th, 19th, 20th, but Russell in 12th, he had a solid race. And the one race where there were no DNFs, he could have done with two cars DNFing. How do you guys reflect on these two teams this weekend?
Yeah, as Williams, I think. I don't know. I think it's quite hard to tell because obviously you haven't got Latifi doing very well, but then you got Russell excelling, and you don't know if it's the car or the driver. As in, if it is the driver, Russell reminds me very much of Alonso, McLaren, when they were like McLaren getting the best out of the car, getting every speed and inch out of it. So yeah, if he's auditioning for that Mercedes seat, Russell is doing very well at doing it, and it's a matter of it's a matter of time before he goes to a better team, because the Williams is either shocking and awful in every single way, or just Latifi is not driving it properly, which I think it's probably the car that's really bad, and Russell's just getting the maximum out of the car, and that is why Russell is so highly rated and why he's finished P12.
Yeah, Joe, I think I agree with Joe. Russell's just generally outperforming the car. He's just putting it somewhere where it just shouldn't be, because it should be. They should be the last in the last four with the Haas. Well, he should be in the car should be in the last four of the Haas. So it's a bit strange to see him up there, but it definitely shows his ability and why he should be in a better team sooner or later. And then with Latifi, I just think I'm not sure if it's him struggling with the car or just him as a driver, but he's just not performing like Russell can. So it's a bit strange to see, but yeah, Russell's just doing whatever he can in that car to put it as high as possible. And then with the Haas, it's just business as usual for them, to be honest, being the last two. They had a good little scrap at the beginning with the two of them, with I think Schumacher having to run wide and go off the track to come back on it towards the start. But yeah, it's just business as usual with Mick coming 19th and Mazepin coming last. But yeah, there's not really much you can talk about them, because it's just the same thing each week. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the week that Mazepin gets some points. We'll have a party, and it will be that'll be a great time. It's definitely coming. I'm sure by the end of the year and next season he'll find himself in the Ferrari, and it's going to be great. I'm sure that's going to happen. But yeah, moving on to finally driver of the day. Who do you guys think had the best race? Because there was certainly some great drives from a lot of people. So yeah, who have you guys got as your driver of the day?
I am gonna go for, Sam's gonna like this, Perez. I think he's kind of slowly making it that Red Bull have done the right decision in bringing them in. I think it's question mark again. You can't really say, oh yeah, Albon would have done it because of the fact that it's not in the car. But I think Red Bull are very much, Perez is very much growing into that Red Bull role, and he's just behind Max Verstappen, which I think Red Bull like. But he preserved his tires incredibly. I think going like 30 or like 28 laps or something ridiculous on a set of mediums, where the other guys only did 17 laps, and then basically was just the thorn in the side of Mercedes, and they couldn't. If Mercedes pitted, they had to get past him. And again, as you said, Sam, the track was very hard to pass. So yeah, I think for me, it shows why he got signed up from Red Bull, and that's the reason why he's my driver today.
My driver today is Lance Stroll, because he effectively started last in the grid because Tsunoda started from the pit lane, and he somehow finished 10th in the points. Bearing in mind he got some luck with the poor Ferraris, but it was still a very good race from Lance himself. He made some great early moves towards the start, getting past the Haas and the Williams, and then starting on the hard and just going long. I think both Aston Martin did the same strategy, which clearly worked out for them as they both came 9th and 10th. But yeah, I think coming from 19th to finishing the points you can't ignore it. Someone has to pick him for driver of the day. So yeah, he did a very good job in that car this weekend.
Yeah, my driver of the day is Danny Ricciardo. I've been saying in the previews, I said before this race that this will be the race where he finally gets some good points and finishes well. And he did. Admittedly, I've said that a few times in a preview, but this time I finally got it right. And yeah, starting 10th, not the best quali, but finishing 6th. Flashes of the old Ricardo, some good moves, some strategy. It was it was awesome to see. And yeah, he's my driver of the day after a brilliant race, and credit to the McLaren strategy, because Norris also ended up getting good race with the strategy, which Josh is very happy about. But yeah, that wraps up our podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, download, and listen. And yeah, we'll see you for a preview of Austria on Friday. But yeah, thank you guys. See you later.